Egyptian priests once claimed they had a written record of a war fought 9,000 years before their time, a war against a lost island empire called Atlantis. That claim comes from exactly one source, the Greek philosopher Plato, writing 200 years after the conversation supposedly happened. So the question isn't really, was Atlantis real? It's this: what did Egyptian priests actually write down, and how much of the legend can survive contact with their real records? We're about to find out, using the actual archives. Here's the detail almost nobody brings up: Egypt was not a mystery to the Greeks. Herodotus, the so-called father of history, spent an entire book on Egypt, its temples, its priesthood, its history, in obsessive, page-after-page detail. He also wrote about Solon, the very man who supposedly brought the Atlantis story home. And in all of that writing, nothing. No island empire. No 9,000-year war. Not a single line. That's strange enough to build a whole investigation around. If the greatest historian of Egypt in the ancient world never heard a whisper of this story, something about the chain of custody is broken, and figuring out exactly where it breaks is what the rest of this video does. We're going to follow the trail all the way to the actual documents Egyptian priests left behind, and see how far the legend survives. Around 590 BC, the Athenian lawmaker Solon traveled to Egypt, a trip most historians accept as broadly real. According to Plato, one stop was Sais, in the western Nile Delta, the religious center of the goddess Neith, whom the Greeks equated with Athena. There, Plato writes, an aged priest told Solon that Egypt's temples held records stretching back thousands of years. And then, in Plato's account, not a surviving Egyptian transcript, worth being clear about that distinction, the priest is said to have described a war fought 9,000 years earlier, between an idealized ancient Athens and an invading island power beyond the Pillars of Hercules, Atlantis. One thread to hold onto for later: this priest is never named in Plato's own text. The name people associate with him, Sancus of Sais, doesn't appear until 500 years afterward, in the writings of Plutarch. Keep that name in mind, we're coming back to it. If this is a real record, the details should hold up. So let's test them. In his unfinished dialogue Critias, Plato describes Atlantis as an island larger than Libya and Asia combined, a capital built in concentric rings of land and water, walls plated in a metal called orichalcum, and a military that, by his own numbers, ran past 1,000,000 men. Here's the harder problem underneath the big numbers. Plato's timeline places this entire empire in a period that predates urban, literate, state-level civilization anywhere on Earth by thousands of years. A Bronze Age empire, dropped into what archaeology shows was still the Mesolithic. So either Egyptian priests preserved something no other evidence on the planet supports, or the details themselves are the tell. We're not ready to call it yet. Because there's still one place we haven't checked: what Egyptian priests actually wrote, in their own hand, about their own deep past. If a 9,000-year memory existed anywhere, it would be there. This is the closest thing we have to Egypt's own witness stand. Around 280 BC, an Egyptian priest named Manetho set out to write a complete history of Egypt in Greek, for the ruling Ptolemaic court, organizing Egypt's rulers into the dynasty system historians still use today. He wasn't working from memory. He had real sources, physical king lists kept in temples, the same kind of institutions Plato's story is set inside. Two of them survive today. The Turin king list records Egyptian rulers stretching back through legendary kings before the historical dynasties begin. The Palermo stone records year-by-year annals, floods, festivals, wars, back to Egypt's earliest rulers around 3100 BC. These are exactly the kind of documents that should preserve a story like Atlantis, if the priests of Sais really passed one down. So what do they say about a lost island empire, a 9,000-year-old war, a single-night catastrophe? Nothing. Not a line. And it's not for lack of digging. Since 1997, archaeologists from the Egypt Exploration Society and Durham University have been excavating Sais itself, the very city in Plato's story, and found a real settlement beneath the ruins dating back to roughly 400 BC. Genuine depth of history, confirmed by the ground. Just, so far, nothing that matches the legend. One possible defense: maybe Egyptian priests just didn't record catastrophic wars in detail. Let's test that too. Around 1175 BC, Egypt faced a real, existential threat, a coalition of seafaring raiders modern historians call the Sea Peoples. At Medinet Habu, the mortuary temple of Ramesses III, priests and scribes carved a detailed account of the war, a land battle and a major naval battle in the Nile Delta, describing a wider Mediterranean world collapsing around them within a generation. So the defense doesn't hold. Egyptian priests were clearly willing to record catastrophic, civilization-ending warfare, in stone, in vivid detail, when it actually happened to them. Which makes the total silence on a war 9,000 years earlier, one that supposedly ended in a single night, even harder to explain away. If there's no Egyptian record and the details don't fit the timeline, is there anything real hiding underneath the myth at all? The strongest candidate takes us to Santorini. Around 1600 BC, the volcano on ancient Thera erupted in one of the largest blasts in recorded history, burying the Bronze Age town of Akrotiri under 60 meters of ash, a genuine Bronze Age Pompeii, uncovered by archaeologists in the 1960s. In 1939, archaeologist Spiridon Marinatos proposed that this eruption, and the decline of Minoan Crete, might be the real memory behind Plato's island civilization lost almost overnight. It's the most cited theory in every Atlantis documentary, which is exactly why it's worth pressure testing instead of just repeating it. Crete sits in the middle of the Aegean, nowhere near the Pillars of Hercules, where Plato explicitly places Atlantis. And the Minoan civilization didn't collapse after the eruption. Archaeology shows it continued for roughly another century. So even the best real-world candidate doesn't actually match. No Egyptian source. No timeline that fits the record. No confirmed event underneath it. At this point we've checked every place the truth could be hiding. Next, we lay out exactly what that adds up to. We've been gathering pieces. Here's what they add up to. Start with the number itself. In Critias, Plato has the Atlantean king command an army built around a core of 60,000 chariots alone, before infantry and rowers are even added, figures completely out of scale with any known Bronze Age power, including Egypt at its height. Add to that, no known Egyptian text, not a king list, not a temple wall, not a single papyrus, across 2 centuries of active excavation, has ever referenced Atlantis. Egyptologists have specifically looked, and Herodotus, the one Greek writer who covered this exact ground in detail, never mentions it either. So why has a story with this little support lasted 24 centuries? Because of what happened in 1882. An American writer named Ignatius Donnelly published Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, a book that took Plato's philosophical allegory and reframed it as literal lost history. It wasn't a fringe pamphlet. It became a bestseller, sparked serious funded expeditions, and effectively created the modern, lost civilization media genre, the direct ancestor of every documentary, including this kind of channel, still investigating Atlantis today. In other words, Plato wrote a 200-year-old story about ambition and hubris, using Egypt's real reputation for deep memory as borrowed credibility. And one 19th-century book is largely responsible for the world forgetting that's what it was. So, what did Egyptian priests actually record? Not Atlantis. But something arguably just as remarkable, an unbroken written memory stretching back over 3,000 years, king lists, temple annals, and first-hand accounts of real civilizations collapsing, carved into stone you can still walk up to today. Plato borrowed the idea of that deep Egyptian memory, the priests' genuine claim that their history dwarfed Greece's, and used it to give an invented warning about hubris, the weight of ancient truth. And that one loose thread from the beginning is still, honestly, unresolved. Sankis of Sais, the priest later writers named as Solon's source, doesn't appear anywhere for 5 centuries after the fact. Historians still don't know if he was a real man Plato simply left unnamed, or a detail added later to make an already invented story feel one layer more real. So here's the question I'll leave you with: real priest or later invention? Drop your verdict in the comments and subscribe, because next time we're putting another ancient record through the same test.